What's up, everybody? Welcome back to a brand new video. And today I am super stoked because I've got a super good friend of mine, Austin Hall, here from Make Pop Music. If you haven't heard of that YouTube channel, it's really super unique. Like I found Austin, I think it was 2014, 2015, actually, while I was in University of Toronto studying piano. And I had never really come across a group or any YouTube channel for that matter that talked about pop music. And especially as composers and songwriters, I'm sure we've all had that itch where we actually want to create like a really memorable song and a hit, potentially. And so when I found this channel and saw there was a Facebook group, I jumped in right away and I was super interested to see, what was going on. And it's given me so many opportunities. But I just want to thank Austin for coming on here today and giving us some of his time. So yeah, Austin, thanks so much for being here, man. I really appreciate it.
Yeah, absolutely. I mean, thank you so much for having me. I love watching your videos, and
Oh,
we've
too
had you
kind,
over.
man.
We've had you over on NPM a few times, so
Yes,
it's
yes.
always nice linking up and just getting to
Appreciate it,
chat to a
man.
friend. And then if we can answer anything that helps out anybody watching this video, I'm more than happy. So thank you so
Yeah.
much for having me.
Yeah, super stoked, man. Yeah. So I just like a general overview question, like if you could share with us, kind of your background, what you studied in school, when you started with music, and um, yeah, I guess just your overall background as a student and now as a musician.
Sweet. Yeah, absolutely. So right now I am 26 years old. I turned 26 in February, and I've been kind of producing music since I was like 18, 19. That's when I was just kind of like making demos for my band, like super kind of, just gnarly equipment, kind of doing whatever I could just to get ideas down. And then I started like obsessing about it through college. And then, of course, people eventually started like kind of offering to pay me for my services. And then I went full time when I was 21. So I think I just hit my 5 year mark in April. So, I've
Congrats.
been full time now for 5 years, and then before that, I was probably doing like a year or two of like freelance work where I'd get the occasional kind of like paying project, and then
Mhm.
for like a year or two before that, I was just doing everything specifically for myself, like not even really a ton of collaborations, just really trying to like nail down my own ideas.
Mhm.
But I've been involved with music for such a long time. Like I started playing guitar at 19 or 9 years old. I started playing
Wow.
like piano and synth at like 14. Started singing at 16. Joined a
Yeah.
band in high school. I was in like a local metal band. And that's where I kind of got like the vibe of like performing live, recording in a studio. And then that band was kind of the reason that I started producing, is because just like we needed to be able to pump out demos so we could kind of
Right.
cycle through ideas. But we were a bunch of high school kids, so we couldn't afford to
Sure.
go to the studio every few weeks. So
Yes.
yeah, I just got whatever setup I could. And once I kind of learned the basics of just like what a DAW is, kind of how it functions, got a couple basic, sample packs and plugins and stuff like that, I started to like fall in love with the idea of being able to produce, especially growing up playing all the different instruments and stuff. This was like
Mhm.
the first time I was ever to hear my full song in my head and then like put it out myself without having to get a collaborator or trying to like communicate it in words. So I
Mhm.
think I just like got really obsessed with the whole idea of being able to record and produce. And then that's kind of just where everything jumped off from. So that's kind of where my just kind of passion as a producer started and kind of where my accidental career started. And then once I'd been full time for like a year, well, I guess it was kind of like as I was going full time, I had swapped from metal because I was producing a lot of metal, and that's kind of like how Make Pop Music came about. Was like there were just so many cool forums and Facebook groups and kind of chats for like metal production, and I'm sure coming
Mhm.
from film, there's quite a bit for film as well,
Sure.
and there weren't really any when I started getting kind of interested in pop. So I was like, okay, well, there's no like kind of outlet for me to share a demo and get feedback. There's nothing to kind of learn from. And so I just made a quick little group and community so people could kind of share their ideas, kind of meet a peer circle. And that's how Make Pop Music started. It wasn't like a funnel or anything for me to like teach
Mhm.
through or sell sample
Mhm.
packs through. It just started as like a genuine community because I wanted to kind of connect with people. And then it just kind of grew from there. And as I gained more projects, people started
Mhm.
wanting the sample packs and the tutorials and stuff like that. And
Right.
I went to college for education. So if when people started asking for it, I had no problem kind of
Mhm.
using that degree because I ended up not using it in my actual, production job. But I was like, yeah, if
Sure.
people want the tutorials, why not have the opportunity to sit
Combine
down and
the
plan this out?
passions
Yeah, I
and
was like, I
yeah.
use that, $45,000 degree somehow. So,
Yeah.
so yeah, now we do like weekly tutorials. We do sample packs a couple times a year, and then like 80% of my time is spent actually working on projects with like clients and artists.
Awesome. Yeah, so actually I'm very curious, like, because this I guess a lot of like aspiring producers, arrangers, songwriters, they all start off at the point where, they are confident in their skills, let's say, right?
Right.
But they don't really know how to network and find the initial projects and start building those connections. So you said before you started doing the YouTube channel and the community group, you had already done some freelance work. So how did you kind of come across those projects and how did you get in touch with people? Did you find like word of mouth was a really big like factor for you and all that?
Yeah, so 100%. I mean, like I said, I kind of started producing just out of necessity and then I kind of fell in love with it for myself. So like
Mhm.
when I was in that stage of like I had already quit my band because I was in college, but I was still making a demo every other day. So like I was pumping out
Mm,
material for myself. They never ended up releasing or anything, but I would just go post
gotcha.
them on the metal groups or I would like share them with my friends. And
Right.
eventually just by doing so much stuff and kind of putting whatever I was doing out in the universe, people started kind of hearing it. My name started circulating. And then, you know, a band or two from Pensacola would hire me to do some remote production. And then their friends would hire me. And then somebody would hear
Mm,
one of my mixes that I did on the Chingo group and then they would come hire me. And so it was kind of just like building up that portfolio with things that I wanted to do for myself and just not being afraid to kind of share that with the world, even though I knew I wasn't at like an expert skill level. I was
right.
still trying to learn, but in that process, I was meeting artists that were also trying to learn and grow. And so, like, I tell people, like, when you're starting production, of course, you're not going to go out and charge $3,000 for a song
Yeah.
for your first song. Because to be honest, the artists and the clients that have that budget are going to be working with the producers that have been doing it for as long as they can. So I'm a big kind
Right.
of proponent of find artists that are kind of at your level and grow with them. And so in
Mm,
metal, I kind of did that. Bands would hire me that were just kind of within the budget. And then for pop, I was just kind of working on material for myself. And I met my current best friend Grayson. I kind of met him at a bookstore while we were working, and he was wanting to get into like kind of being a pop songwriter and artist. So I was just like, hey, I'm literally a couple months into trying to do some pop music. If you want to come over one night, we'll order a pizza, we'll have some beers, we'll knock out a couple songs. If you want them, you can use them, and if not, you don't have to. And
right.
then he was like my first few portfolio pieces, and then from then again, it's just sharing your stuff with the world, letting them
Love it.
hear it, and then eventually people will come around. Like if you have, you know, if you have your skill set and you have good taste and good style and you can network with people, I think that's really all it takes. I don't think you have to have a YouTube channel or a website with a bunch of funnels. It's all just about doing good quality work and just honestly being a good conversation. And that's where like
Mhm,
90%
mhm.
of things will come. Whether that's from Instagram or YouTube or Facebook or whatever, it's all going to end up kind of happening the same.
Right. No, that's definitely interesting, and I appreciate you talking about Grayson a little bit because that kind of reminds me of the topic of being open and conversational, and also like generous in general. Right. I think a lot of people are drawn to personalities that are very willing to give of themselves, but also have a respect of their own time and all that. But um, I'm curious, like when you started the channel and as the Facebook community grew, how have you personally seen the growth and the work kind of increase? Has it kind of correlated like in terms of the growth and the amount of work you got, or kind of what has anything really like changed in the overall dynamic of your work life balance since then, or
Yeah,
how did it
100%.
change?
Yeah, absolutely. So like with again like with me kind of running the group and then running the channel, it's just it kind of is a responsibility now for me to put out as much
Mm,
of myself as I possibly can. So like I would say for the first 2 or 3 years of being freelance, like 80 to 90% of my projects came from the group, but it was never me like marketing myself. It wasn't me being like, "Hey, hire me," or "Hey, listen to
yeah,
this thing I've
yeah,
done." It was just like, you know, if somebody needed help with like mixing a vocal, I would like pop in and give a tip, and just all of these different
exactly.
kind of forms of communication and, you know, kind of giving information and giving feedback just kind of built these long-term relationships. And so people that
Hmm.
I had been, you know, kind of casually talking to for 4 or 5 months ended up being like, okay, well, I have a song. I need to hire somebody. Like, are you down to work on it? So that's kind
Right.
of how it happened with the group. And I definitely grew pretty quickly. And then with the YouTube channel, um, you know, I kind of came onto the YouTube channel and like we kind of branded as Make Pop Music after our friend kind of Daniel Grimmett kind of like popped in and helped kind of structure all of that to not just be like this random community on Facebook. And so when we started
Mm,
doing the YouTube tutorials, I started getting a lot of leads on YouTube. And at first it was really, really cool, but you kind of have to start realizing that the more random leads that come from YouTube or from Instagram that you're not kind of networking with, like the people I was on Facebook or the people I was through word of mouth, you have to be a bit more selective because you don't know
yeah.
them, you don't know the vibe, you don't know if it's a project that you even want to do. So for like the
Mm,
first year of getting a bunch of YouTube leads and a bunch of Facebook group leads, I was just overworking myself because I was like, oh my God, there's, you know, 15 leads a week in my inbox. I can turn
right.
that into 10 projects a week. And like, I think at one point I did like 300 songs in a year, which was like
Crazy.
almost a song a day, which was
Yeah,
insane.
that's nuts.
And
Yeah.
so like I was charging too little. I was like way overworked. I wasn't able to make as much make pop music content as I wanted. So I
Right.
eventually got to the point where like I had to start being a bit more selective. But all of that really changed through those outlets, being able to just kind of put my work out there and kind of attract people. Like it was kind of a principle that I
Yeah.
picked up from my friend Dan, who kind of helped NPM kind of start. And that was just like you never really want to market yourself. You more so just want to like attract people to you.
Yeah.
And if it's a good fit, that'll end up happening.
Makes sense. Yeah, it makes total sense. I mean, content marketing is really the name of the game, isn't it? Like
Right.
more and more, we're just seeing channels offer value for free, and if people like that content, if they're searching for that content, then it's a much more organic and natural contact to make, right? So,
100%.
and for those people who are, let's say, trying to consider starting a channel or putting themselves more out there in the world, do you have any maybe like practical advice, tips on some do's and don'ts on
Yeah.
that type of thing, like don't spam your stuff, or how to approach a certain contact or anything like that?
Yeah, absolutely. So I think for anybody, especially with a YouTube channel, like you're probably going to start it and you're going to get that imposter syndrome quite fast,
Oh yeah.
especially when the rude comments will start coming in after your first couple videos of like, who are you even? Why should I listen
What
to
are you
you?
talking about?
Blah, blah, blah. Yeah, I'm sure nobody says it on your channel ever.
Oh, trust me. I've seen my
um,
share.
exact. But like, it's just one of those things where A, you have to just kind of like build up a thicker shell. And B, I found that it gets a lot easier when you're very kind of upfront and honest about where you are on your own journey. So like even on
Mm,
NPM, even now, like I'll never really position myself as like an expert on something or like a
right.
seasoned
Right.
professional. I'm just like, look, like this is where I'm at. These are the artists I've worked with. These are the credits I have. I'm not going to fluff up anything. Here is a
Right.
tip that I've used to like mix a background vocal. If you want it, perfect. If not, that's totally fine. Go watch Ian Kirkpatrick. I'm not going to be offended.
Right.
Um,
Absolutely.
and
Yeah.
so I think it's just about like just being genuine and just being like, look, I know that I'm not, Max Martin, but I also know that I'm not a
Mm,
kid that's never had a paying client. So I feel like there's a
right.
lot of people kind of in that middle ground that I can help because I'm either where they're at in their journey or I'm maybe one or two steps ahead. And when I
Yes.
was at
Yes.
their part, it would have been really nice to hear somebody that was kind of at an achievable level. And that's what's been kind of cool is like, as of late, I've been getting bigger credits. I'm starting to work with like label projects. I'm starting to work with like really
Mm,
big collaborations. But I feel like it'll always be really cool for our audience because they got to see that kind of happen in real time. Because when I started
beautiful.
Make Pop Music, it was like I'd had a couple paying artists and
Right.
clients. And so now,
Right.
they got to see that full progression of here's this guy going full time, here's this guy kind of building a side business, and now here's this guy working on, label cuts and actually pulling in big collaborations and taking back in. So I feel like it's all just about kind of like being honest with where you're at in your journey and not trying to just
Mm.
have this like, oh yes, like I have a YouTube channel. Come watch me mix because I'm a master. It's just like we already have mixing with the masters and they didn't hire you. So
That
just do something
yes.
different.
Yes. Sure. Yeah. No, that I think based on what you said, it really comes down to being authentic and offering yourself as much as you can out to the world on a consistent basis, because that's how you're going to stay top of mind for people, right?
100%.
Um, and yeah, so I guess that segues into an additional question about monetization, right? So the thing is, there's always a stigma in music. I guess like no matter in what field of music, but like it's a very common thing for people to say, it's very difficult to make money in music, right?
Right.
Because it's not like a 9 to 5, it's not a steady paycheck. But based on where you are at currently, um, what kind of monetization streams have you seen that are possible in music in your own life, and then maybe I guess outside of that, ones that you're not currently maybe entertaining, but that you've seen work in other people's lives?
Yeah. So I think like most people forget that, especially if you're trying to be freelance without a manager, you kind of have to run a business as well. And sometimes it does
Mm,
feel a little weird or a little icky to have a consultation call and then have to like mention the budget at the end or have to,
right.
send an invoice to an artist. But like that's all just the name of the game. People that respect your work will not have a problem paying you. They'll want to pay you. Like all of the bigger projects I've worked on were the ones that were like most forthcoming about getting me my rate, getting me my back end. And there was never any like negotiation. And like it
Mm,
was really hard at first because you always hear like, oh, you do it for the love of the art, you do it for the passion. And it's like, yeah, that's true. But like if I want to be able to afford the time to work on all the projects that I'm trying to work on, like I have to get paid for that. And so
mm,
like my income is split up in a couple different regions. And it's all kind of by choice. Like none of them were like needed to supplement another. It's just I've found ways to kind of buy my time to do everything. So like I've got the one
mhm.
branch that's my production. And so on that branch I have, production, co-writing, mixing and mastering. those are like my main topics. And those are typically like take half up front at the project, take half at the end. And on the bigger projects, I'll negotiate back end. On smaller independent projects, I don't even bother. I just let them keep all that and take my rate. And so
Mm,
that's kind of one income stream. And then the other one right now is make pop music. So that kind of all accidentally happened. Like until January of 2019, Make Pop Music wasn't really making any money. We were just a Facebook group, and
mm,
we'd make occasional YouTube channel videos. And so we kind of built a new store out, started selling all of our sample packs, preset packs, all of our courses. We're selling your course. And so once we did that, we started getting some of that passive revenue from the website. So people buying sample packs and courses and presets. And we don't spend any money on marketing, like we don't run ads or anything.
right,
And
right.
it takes a lot of time, obviously, to like build out the initial product. But once that's done, like if I build a sample pack and I sell it for $30, yeah, I might have
Yeah,
spent a week making that pack, but yeah, I could potentially make $300 from that or $300,000 from that. So it's
exactly,
like
exactly.
you just have
Yeah,
to make back that initial kind of time investment. And so we've been
yes,
able to do that on everything we've released. And then we found out that like the biggest key to growing our website sales passively was like making the free YouTube content. So that's why we do a
yes,
free,
yes.
30 to 40-minute video every single week on YouTube, is because that ends
Yeah,
up leading to, a couple $1,000s a week in sales very, very passively
right.
that we're not spending money on marketing or making. And so like that's
Yes,
kind of all been accidental. And then we got to a point where like now the YouTube channel's monetized. So we get a small check from that every month, but it's nothing substantial. It's, in between
sure.
like 800 and $1,000 a month, which is nice.
Nothing to laugh at. Like,
It's
I'm not
definitely
doing any,
it's definitely
anything
substantial, but
here.
it's not like it's
Yeah,
like
yeah, yeah,
the
yeah.
channels out
It's not
there
paying all
making
your bills or anything.
right. Like there's channels out there making $20,000 checks a month just from their
Sure,
ad revenue. So I mean that's like a
absolutely.
nice thing, but we do the YouTube videos because like we don't make the money back with ad revenue for the YouTube
Right.
videos. It's all about having something to kind of show people. And like we're never really trying to
Yes.
like push our projects or our products. It's more so just like, hey, if you like this content and like you enjoy the free
Yeah.
content, we do have paid stuff that's like a step above this. You don't
Yes.
have to go buy it. Like I don't really care if you do or you don't, but they are tools that are
Right.
there. And that's kind of how we've positioned everything. That's how I've positioned myself as a producer or our website. It's like I never want to push anybody to anything. I don't want to feel like I have to sell it. I just want it to be there and for people to see it, and then they know me so they know that it's worth it or that it's
Right.
probably not going to be a good fit for them. And that's fine with me.
Yeah. That's beautiful. Yeah. And I like from what I'm understanding, it really comes down to um putting a lot of stuff out there in the world. And even if you don't get hired by, I don't know, 1,000 people, there's that like 1 to 10% who will really become like the super fans and really enjoy what you're doing and hit you up for other things later, and
Right.
building those connections that way is just so beautiful. And it just continues to stress to me like the importance of having an online presence, just putting yourself out there as much as possible while not spamming, but like being consistent and deliberate. But like for those, yeah, I guess for those kind of aspiring producers, composers, writers, um, if you could give maybe like three solid tips on how to start out and what to keep in mind as they're making their way through the industry and how to potentially make a living as a producer or whatever in their respective fields, um like what would you think to say?
Yeah. So tip one is obviously like be as proficient as possible in your field. So when you do get the opportunity to take a project or when you do get an artist in your inbox on Instagram, you're not going to drop the ball, because I've definitely seen
Mhm.
people market themselves so much and connect with people so much, but then when the projects come, they just can't manage it, and then the projects fall through. They
Yeah,
end
yeah,
up having
yeah.
to refund things. They kind of get a bit of a wonky reputation at first because they're not delivering 100% of the time. So I would say
Right.
definitely like, of course, you want to be as proficient as possible. We are providing a product at the end of the day, and you want to do that as
Mhm.
well as you can. But then beyond that, I would say like just as important is you really have to work on your conversation skills, your charisma, being a good hang when people are in the studio. Like, especially when you're working with artists, people really want a vibe. So, like, that's why every time
Yes.
if I get an inquiry that I feel like might be a solid fit, I'll send them a link and we have like a Skype or a phone call, and I can immediately tell if the vibe is on or off. And if the vibe is
Right.
off, I'll just tell them like, hey, thanks so much, but I don't think that I'm the perfect fit. If the vibe is good, then typically the projects work really well. Like NPM and my personal production has like a
Mhm.
success rate of 98%. So I think I've maybe refunded
Wow.
like 1 to 2% of projects that I've ever worked on and 1 to 2% of sales that we've ever done. And so
Yes.
I think a lot of that happens just from like making sure that people know what they're getting the vibe right from the start, and then having those kind of communication skills. And then tip number three would be just working on kind of time management and taking care of yourself, because I've definitely overworked myself in the past. And like I was hustling hella hard. Like I was doing a ton of projects, and financially I was doing great, but it just started to kind of wear me down. And then projects started to not be as creative as I wanted. And I was
Mm.
finding that I was having to refund more projects at a higher rate. I was finding that like outside
Right.
of work, I wasn't able to think about anything else. And so, once you do kind of build that calendar up, and you do have a full calendar, you have to kind of actively take time for yourself, because especially in like a freelance field like this, it's so easy to just be like, oh my God, yeah, I have this project, I have this inquiry, I have this thing happening. And you want to book it all and you want to
Mhm.
work with everybody. But like once you get to that level, you just really can't work with everybody. And it sucks, but it is what it is. And you have to take care of yourself. That way the people that you do work with get the best version of yourself.
Absolutely. Yeah, yeah, yeah. And you had mentioned like at a certain point, imposter syndrome, or the idea that we just don't feel like we're good enough to do something, right? And building that confidence is so important. So, just as a final question, like when was the point in your life or in your career where you felt more confident, and instead of like looking for clients, you actually felt that you were able to, charge what you were worth and let the people start coming to you? Was it when you did the YouTube channel, before that, a little after that? But I'm just curious because of so many of, our audiences are kind of at the point where they're building their skills, but they're not quite sure, whether to charge more, or if they're, whatever they're doing. So,
Yeah, I think that's a really, really good question. And I think it's going to be a little bit different for everybody. I know for me, like I'll still have days where I get the negative YouTube comment and I'm like, wait, why am I doing this? Or like I'll
right,
get a lead
right.
for like a really big project and I'm like, oh man, can I handle this? Like this is actually like an important project. But
Yeah,
then
yeah,
it
yeah.
just comes back to just being like, I'm honest. If people like, not everybody's going to like me. And like, honestly, it kind of hit me one day when I think the channel was at like 90,000 subs, and I had worked with
Mhm.
like close to 1,000 artists. And I was like driving by the Civic Center here, like where they do all the concerts, and there's like 25,000 seats or whatever. And I was just
Uh,
like, damn, if that place was full, I could fill that place up for 4 nights with people that
yeah,
like me and support me. And out of those four
yeah, that's great.
nights, there would probably be maybe 30 people in the audience that didn't like me. Like that's a pretty high success rate.
Yeah,
And so I just
right.
had to get to that point of like, not everybody's going to like me. There are people that I don't like. And I was like, I don't get to tear myself apart for not being liked by everybody when there's also people and things that I don't like.
Yes,
So I just had to kind of realize
sure.
like taste will differ. It's much less about like, do people like me? Do people think I'm cool? Do they think I'm nice? Do they think I do good work? And like, as long as you respect me, even if you don't like my work, even if you don't think that what we're doing on the channel is needed or whatever, that's fine. As long as you
Yeah,
respect me and see where I'm coming from, I can respect you and see where you're coming from. And I think just kind of
yeah.
like being able to realize not everything's going to be a perfect fit, not everything's going to be all sunshine and roses. And at the end of the day, like I've got to be able to deal with myself to kind of put out the best quality work that I possibly can.
Mhm,
And the only
mhm.
people that suffer when I kind of get in my head is myself and the artist that I'm working with. So yeah, I think just
Yeah.
kind of realizing like it is what it is. It's just things are going to happen.
Right, right. And I found that like so I'm 25 now, so I'm but it's like I've realized these past couple years, it just with time and experience comes the confidence, and just doing the same thing over and over, like the projects, working with people. The best way to build confidence, I think, is just to continue doing it again and again, right? And
Right.
because, like you said, you worked with like 1,000 people and made so many, worked on so many projects. I'm sure you're definitely at a level where you can exactly say like what everything that I do, everything that I don't do, what I'm like super strong at, what I'm not, maybe not as strong as, and finding ourselves in that way can be, really gratifying for sure.
Right.
So yeah, I don't know. It's music is it's an interesting journey, but especially as freelancers, producers, writers, I feel like it's scary because there's not one really set defined path. And seeing your path is super inspiring because a lot of us started out kind of in a similar position as you, I think, right? Like just producing for ourselves or our friends and don't really know where to go from there. So I think at the end of the day, it really comes down to, like you said, working with people really well, building your own communication skills, and just making sure your quality of work fundamentally is very solid,
Right.
right?
Yeah. Just keeping it slow and consistent. Like you want to move at a slow, maintainable pace, but you also want to be getting things done. So like I feel like some people think like
Yes.
move slow. Okay, well I'm gonna work on 3 projects a year. It's like no, move slow. Like I'm not saying you need to go like throw $1,000 into marketing, but like should always have
Yeah, yeah,
something
yeah.
on your back burner that you're kind of stoked about. And so
Right.
sometimes they're paying projects, sometimes they're not paying projects. Like I didn't take paying projects
Yes.
for a couple years, and like I was fine with that because it wasn't ever about that. Like I honestly had no intention of ever being a full-time producer. It just literally accidentally
Mm,
happened. So
mm,
and I've just
mm.
fallen in love with it. So I love doing it. And I think just don't overstress the kind of business side. Like you need to be able to handle it when it needs to be handled, but it's not something
Yeah.
that you should be thinking about like every waking moment of the day.
Right. Yeah, because then that could put a lot of pressure on yourself
Yeah, it just
to
takes the fun out
get
of it.
that.
Like music is art at the end of the
Yeah.
day. And like, yeah, we have to make it a business to make it a sustainable living. But like I've definitely gotten into the kind of spells where I'm just so focused on like sending out the invoices and making sure projects are
Right.
rolling. And it's just like I was spending like 70% of my time thinking about the projects rather than like working on the projects. It's just like, no, just
Right.
leave all that alone for an hour
It's not
and
healthy.
just go
Yeah.
work on it.
Yeah. Right, right, and I think that's one of the reasons I'm working on an album this year is because I realized that the past couple of years it's definitely been fulfilling and fun to work on the YouTube
Right.
channel and come up with content, but I wasn't really making time for myself to write new stuff, and I'm sure as an artist yourself, you definitely feel really really good those times where you can actually find time to make music for yourself.
100%. Yeah, and then it's just nice too to like I love collaborating with artists and I love working on teams and stuff like that, but sometimes it's nice at the end of the day to just like do what I want to do, like be the head of the project.
Yeah.
Like if I want to throw in a weird element, I can. So like my stuff as an artist is
Yes.
kind of just whenever I'm either a little burnt out or just have like an off day and it's like I need to kind of reset. That's what I'll do is I'll
Yeah.
just work on a song for myself, kind of not put any parameters on it, see where it goes, and then if it's good, I release it. If not, I just store it on the hard drive and listen to it every now and then.
Love it. Yeah, yeah, yeah. So yeah, just as a final wrap up, seeing yourself in 5 to 10 years, what is your like ideal position you want to be in? Are you currently in that right now, or do you see anything changing for yourself in the future?
Yeah, I think I'm super happy with where I was 5 years ago, where I was like literally starting to take my first paying projects to where I'm at now. Like, I
Yeah.
definitely think I've made the ground that I wanted to. So, in the next 5 to 10 years, um, my big focus now is like taking less freelance work like all the time. And I'm starting to try to work
Mm,
on more, big projects, like more label projects, more projects that are not like guaranteed, but if they hit, they'll be like, starting to
yeah.
become career
Big.
defining for me is like I really want to
Sure.
kind of transition into that. I don't always want to be knocking out 200 or 300 songs a year that then
Mm,
are just small independent releases. Like that's great, and I love working with a smaller artist. But like at the end of the day, I'm eventually going to run out of songs, and I want to make sure that I'm starting to kind of reserve some of those for the projects that are like bucket list projects. And then with
mm,
NPM, I just really want to keep growing the channel, and like our big focus now is like collaborating, bringing in more kind of content creators for like our packs and our courses and stuff like that. Like I don't always want to be the only one doing everything. Like I can
mhm.
only make so many kick drums before I'm just like I don't know.
Sure,
Like
sure.
I don't know. And we're
For
at the
sure.
point now where we
Yeah.
can like afford to hire people to help us make our packs, and we can kind of
Right.
afford to put a little bit more time into like the creative process. So it's really just about like
Mm,
scaling back the kind of quote unquote business side of it and being able to do more of the kind of artistic side because finances have kind of afforded us that with like the passive
mhm.
projects from NPM and then, the bigger paying projects that I've been able to take. So definitely just kind of
Right.
funneling myself more into the like, I guess like the quote unquote traditional full-time producer, not like the freelancer that's just taking tons of projects all over the place.
Makes sense. Yeah, because you want to free up your time, right?
Right.
And give yourself the freedom to do whatever you
Right. And
want
like I love
as
it,
well.
but
Yeah.
eventually it's like, I do want to be in this session with Dua Lipa. I don't want to have seven
Yeah.
seven productions for like all these different artists all over the world that I'm like trying to communicate with. So
Right.
yeah.
Right, right, right. Um, yeah, I thought just came to mind. It's like you see artists like Charlie Puth or Shawn Mendes, whoever, who just blew up suddenly. Like they literally went viral, right? But for people like you and me, it's more of a slow burn,
Right.
right? Like you've definitely had exponential growth on the channel, but I don't think you'd say very many videos have gone like seriously viral,
Right.
right? But you've really worked it from the ground up to this point, right? And so you can really see the fruits of the labor. Like the long-term play is the way to go, and like don't give up if you don't see immediate results, because in music that rarely happens, I think,
100%.
yeah, it's tough. But anyway, thanks so much for spending time with me, man. I appreciate it, and I hope you people watching, I hope you enjoyed it. And if you want to check out Austin, uh check out Make Pop Music. First of all, that's like the channel that Austin runs, and I've done a couple videos over there as well. But and like, do you want to share your site with us, Austin, or like any other like pages or links we can
Yeah, for
find
sure.
you?
If anybody wants to hear some of like my work as a producer, you can just go to my website, just austinhull.com. And then I think there's like a link to a Spotify playlist that's got like an extended portfolio. If
Nice.
not, then you can just send me a DM on Instagram or something. But on Instagram, I'm just austinhull23. And then if you want to chat on Facebook, come join the Make Pop Music group. We'll add you in. There's like 28,000 people in there now. We try to moderate it so there's no spam or no junk. My wife does an amazing job running that. That's another thing we didn't
Yes.
talk to, but it's just like delegating work. Like I was able to have this
Yeah,
kind of growth
absolutely.
because of having her kind of help with NPM. So if you want to come join the
Oh yeah.
group, definitely come join. If you want to follow us on Instagram, it's just Make Pop Music literally everywhere. And then other than that, yeah, if you want to chat, just hit up the inbox.
Love it. Love it. Thanks so much, man. Yeah, I can definitely say NPM is probably one of the, if not the cleanest group that I've seen for sure.
Thank you.
Especially with that number of people, it's really difficult, I'm
Thank you.
sure.
Thank
So
you.
amazing. Yeah. Anyway, thanks so much, everybody. Really appreciate it. I'll catch you in the next video and see you
Bye, guys.
later. Bye, Austin.
Peace.
See you. Bye.